You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
Pirate fans, welcome into the show tonight in what is all of a sudden a Week 8 edition of Sonny and Semenza here, and the college football season moving right along. And, the East Carolina Pirates coming off a huge 4-overtime win in Greenville, certainly something they could build a little momentum off of. And with that said, let me go ahead and welcome in my partner here, Jay Sonnhalter. Jay, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Gosh, that was a huge win Saturday for the Pirates, and another big one coming up Saturday, and should be a bunch of other good games around college football.
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. And I had a chance to go to the game in Greenville. I get down there maybe once a year if I'm lucky, and I'll tell you, man, I got my money's worth, Jay, because that was the game that just wouldn't end. The longest game I've ever attended in person, but the Pirates were able to prevail in 4 overtimes. Did you have a chance to catch it, Jay, or were you working?
I got back. I got back for part of the second half. You need to come back this weekend, I think, too. Right?
I would love to, man. I would love to, because this is a huge game. But I'll tell you, I had a blast. It wasn't a huge crowd, Jay. I mean, it was pretty thin, actually. When you compare it to like the NC State game and some other big games we've had. But I think the people who were there in attendance were loud and into the game. So it was a pretty good atmosphere, despite the lag in attendance there.
Well, as a player, it's so important to win every game, but especially homecoming games, because it means a lot to the people coming back. I think after you win that one, this one just gets even bigger. So hopefully the Pirates, it's going to be a great game with UCF, but hopefully it's a great atmosphere, and it should be a fun one.
Yeah, there's no question about it, Jay. And before we kind of jump into it here, just wanted to mention that because of some scheduling, concerns, we had to kind of shift the schedule around a little bit and have the show tonight on Tuesday. Typically it's a Wednesday show around 8:00, but appreciate your flexibility for tuning in. And, with that said, Jay, as we do each and every week, before we hop into, all the games here in week 8, let's just do a little recap, my friend. So here we go, Jay. We're both 18-18. What do you think of that?
Well, it could be worse, but it could be better. So we were 3-2 last week, so we would have won some money if we did or didn't put anything down on the table. But I think we're in a respectable spot. But now we got to take the next step.
We do. That's a good way to say it. I mean, here's how I look at it, Jay. Right? If we were gambling real money here, we'd basically break even at this point. So we haven't lost. And again, we're picking the toughest games every week. We're not looking for for just winners. We're picking the top 5 games every week in college football. So what we need to do is get over 500, buddy.
Yeah, this is the week. I mean, the people are putting their trust in us. So 4 or 500, that means everybody's 500. So we all need to get above.
I like it. And our producer, Jay Bubba, was talking a lot of trash before the show, and he basically said that his picks were far superior than ours. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. What are your thoughts on
Bubba's record? What's Bubba's record?
He said he's like 30-15. I don't know.
If he's 30-15, then he needs to get on here and we'll listen to him and we'll make some money.
No question about it. I mean, I'll definitely, I'll pay a little money for somebody with that kind of record, to make money every week. But, Jay, hey, with that said, just as we do every week, just kind of taking a step and looking back at week 7 here. Obviously some huge games. I think none bigger than the Tennessee Volunteers getting it done at home against Alabama.
Well, we learned that Tennessee's legit. officially, I'd say the top 5 team, and they're going to have something to say when they play Georgia, and we'll see what happens in the SEC race. But we originally thought it was just Georgia and Alabama. Now there's another team, at least one that's legit, and Ole Miss is sitting right there inside the top 10 too, plus the other good teams in the league. So that game was amazing. Just the atmosphere and everything behind the scenes was awesome with game day being there and all.
It really was. I mean, you could tell the fans in Knoxville have been starving for a breakthrough win like that. I mean, it's been a long time, man. It's probably been 20 years or so since they've had that type of a win, that type of an atmosphere. They have a great fan base, awesome stadium. I thought it was pretty cool how they ripped down the goalpost and carried them, through the streets in the town there too.
I think everybody's still drunk from that game.
I think I would be too. It's a pretty awesome environment. But yeah, I'll tell you that game really stood out to me, Jay. And just kind of looking at some of the other storylines of the week, I think a few games I wanted to mention. But Jay, how about the fact that the quarterback Leary from NC State gets hurt, goes down with an injury. NC State goes up to the Carrier Dome and drops that game.
Yeah, they're in trouble. I mean, their fan base, and really because the preseason poll, top 15 team, they're going to be in trouble now because they still have some tough games coming up, especially with your backup quarterback. They still have Wake Forest, UNC, Louisville, so some tough ball game.
I agree. That's going to be a tough mountain to climb with the backup. I mean, he's dynamic with his feet, but he really seems to struggle when he has to read defenses and actually be a quarterback. So their point production has gone way down since he's kind of been in that starting lineup. So that's definitely going to make it, very difficult on NC State as the season goes on. And some of the other, just a few notable games I wanted to mention. How about Old Dominion, Jay? Really beaten down an undefeated Coastal team.
Yeah, that was wild. I mean, that league is tough.
Yeah.
With the depth of the league, Old Dominion, Georgia Southern, I mean, Appalachian State, Coastal. I mean, that's a very deep league.
It certainly is. I mean, it's underrated. It's just got this stigma about it, like, oh, it's the Sun Belt, oh, it's mid-major college football, this and that. There's every excuse in the book, and every time they play an opponent from a Power Five, they show up and they win a good portion of the time, and they always play well. So that's, I agree. A few more quick ones. How about Notre Dame? Just really, in my opinion, a pathetic loss to Stanford, 16-14.
Yeah, you can't be doing that. That was bad. I mean, I know it's Freeman's first year, but you can't be losing that game at home.
Agreed. They've been really Jekyll and Hyde, Jay. I mean, it seems like they just can't find any consistency offensively, and it's crazy how they're so up and down. And then how about LSU? Going into the swamp and hanging 45 on the Gators. Talk about a team that's been up and down all year that we've really talked about. I think almost every week we've had LSU in one of our preview games, and you really don't know how to pick them, right? I mean, you just don't know what you're going to get week to week.
Well, I think in year 2 and year 3 of Brian Kelly, they're going to be really, really tough. I think right now they're still figuring it out, but I mean, they're probably going to go 8-4, 9-3 in year 1 after Orgeron kind of ran that down into the ground quickly, and a lot of stuff going on there after the national championship in 19, and for him to get it turned around, be looking this solid. I mean, it just shows you how good of a coach he is.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, and you've been really consistent with that, Jay. I mean, you've given Brian Kelly a lot of props on the show this year, and I agree. It's gonna take him a few years to get it exactly how he wants it, but that's a program that is going to be very dangerous in 2-3 years, as if they aren't now. But so that's just a quick little recap of week 8, Jay, and of week 7. Let's go ahead and look towards week 8. Bubba, if you want to throw the first game up on the screen here, we're going to preview 5 games tonight and then talk a little bit about the East Carolina UCF game at the very end. So with that said, Jay, let's go ahead and look towards the first game here. And how about we start with Ole Miss versus LSU, Jay? And this is a game that you look at. This game's going to be in LSU. Ole Miss going down into Baton Rouge, and 3.5-point favorite here. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think this is going to be a great game, and I think both these teams, have New Year's Day potential to be in a bowl game, be one of those big ones. I'm just a believer in LSU right now. I think they're going to go in there and cover.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's Ole Miss ranked up to number 7 now at 7-0. LSU sitting at around 5-2, and correction, Jay, on the line. Let me just make a correction. This is LSU minus 1.5. So my apologies there. This is LSU minus 1.5 at home. So really, interesting game in that sense. I think just looking at LSU, they've been so up and down. They had a really big win over Mississippi State and Florida. Then they dropped one, Florida State, and really just up and down. So I just think Ole Miss, when it's all said and done, I think they're just going to be able to outscore them a little bit. So, but I think, again, very close, pick 'em type game. But I'm going to go with Ole Miss, buddy. I'm going to go with Ole Miss here. So you got LSU, Jay? Okay. All right. Bubba, what do we got next? All right. We got, here we go. Number 14, Syracuse, 6-0 at number 5, Clemson. Clemson's a 13.5-point favorite, Jay. Very tough game to pick. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I think this is a tough one, and I think Syracuse has surprised a lot of people and shown a lot. And I'm not a big believer in Clemson to blow out anybody, but I do think this is one of those games. Syracuse coming off of a big victory against NC State, even though they're down a quarterback, still they beat a ranked team. Clemson going home, I think they're going to go ahead and cover and win by 14 or more.
Wow, so you like Syracuse to win by 14 or more, huh?
No, I like Clemson to win by 14.
Clemson to win by 14. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
I misunderstood there. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you, it's a tough one because Syracuse, almost every game they've played this year has been at home in the Carrier Dome. And I'm really curious to see how they're going to respond when they leave the friendly confines of Syracuse and head down to South Carolina. And right there, I think that's a major advantage for Clemson. Syracuse is a funny team. Their defense is outstanding, Jay. I mean, they are really tough defensively. Their offense is honestly pretty disgusting. It's really the type of offense where the quarterback just scrambles and makes plays, but they find a way to put some points up on the board and they find a way to win. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm going to say Syracuse covers the 13.5. I don't think they're going to win, but I could see them losing this game by a touchdown or so.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, that's a tough spread.
It definitely is. It is. It'll be. I think that'll be a good battle. Who would have thought, right? Syracuse number 14 at 6-0 coming into the season. That'll be a fun one to watch. Bubba, what do we have next? Okay, what's next? We got that one. All right, here we go. Number 9, UCLA, the surprise team of the season at 6-0. Jay heading up to Oregon to play the number 10 Ducks. Ducks are a 6-point favorite at home. What do you think here?
Well, that's rough. I mean, UCLA surprised everybody, and you think at home Oregon's, going to have a big advantage. But then you look at the line play, UCLA, what they've been able to do. They're doing really good things running the ball and stopping the run. I just think being at home is going to be big for Oregon. I think UCLA, this is their first big road test. I'm going to go with Oregon to cover and win by 6 or more, or win by more than 6.
Yeah, this is another tough one. I mean, you look at Oregon, Jay. I mean, remember back to the first week of the season when they lost like 55-0 against Georgia. I'll be honest, I kind of wrote them off at that point. And all they've done ever since then is just rip off 5 straight wins and get themselves back up into a number 10 team in the country. So they've been really good outside of that that Georgia game. And then you look at UCLA. I mean, man, I say it every week. This is the surprise team of the season. 6-0. They score in the 40s, it seems like, every week. And they've knocked off some good teams. Washington, they beat Utah, which was a really good win at home. So they have a lot of momentum right now. This is going to be an awesome game. It's going to be high scoring. Whatever the over is, I don't even have it in front of me, Jay, but this is going to be a high scoring game, a lot of points. I think it's going to be somewhere like 45-42 when it's all said and done. So I'm going to say UCLA covers the 6. I don't know if they're going to win, but I think they will cover the 6 and in a very close game.
We disagree on everything.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, last week we agreed on a lot, right?
I guess we need to hear what Bubba has to say since Bubba is undefeated on the year.
But yeah, exactly. Well, actually, thanks for throwing that up. The over-under for that game is 70.5, Jay. I'd take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think it's going to be high scoring too. They don't play defense in the Pac-12.
No, they don't. Bubba, I don't know if you're able to chime in here, but what are your thoughts on that game, if you can? And I know Bubba was having some difficulties here, but here he is.
Yeah, guys, I'm talking about UCLA at Oregon. Like Jay is saying, as far as Oregon's concerned, Oregon has really, come on strong, and I guess it's, partially the Pac-12 effect, if you will. Playing out there, a lot of times you don't hear about it, depending on the game time, especially. But since that rout at the hands of Georgia, they've really played some solid football. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do, probably against their best opponent since playing Georgia. And being there at Autzen Stadium, it's hard to bet against them. But I do think that if I was putting any money on this one, that let me go back. What was that line? It was Ducks by 6. I think I'm taking UCLA in the points.
Okay, all right. So we agree on that one. Bubba, what do you think about the while we have you here, what do you think about the Clemson game? Intriguing game. Clemson at home, bringing in the Syracuse Orangemen. The line is 13.5. What do you think about that one?
You think about this series down through the years. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think both in the Carrier Dome or whatever, the former Carrier Dome, and I know this one's in Death Valley, but I think they've played them well a time or two, maybe at Clemson, if I'm not mistaken. So, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if the game was competitive and they cover that 13, but I could see it being a situation where Clemson maybe covers late, and they ended up winning by 14 or 17, something like that. So I think that when I think I'd go with Clemson to cover in the 4th.
Gotcha. So I'm alone on this one. I'm going with the Qs to at least cover. We'll see.
But very quickly, Matt, going back to that UCLA Oregon matchup, we've heard so much about Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. How about DRT out there with UCLA? He's had a heck of a season. Dorian. Yeah, maybe I said that backwards, but Dorian's had a tremendous year for the Bruins.
Yeah, they just continue to impress each and every week, and I think now it's getting to the point where if they can go to Autzen and win that game on the road, you're talking about a team that, could potentially win the Pac-12 here. I mean, this is setting up, potentially of the end of the season matchup between UCLA and USC is going to have huge implications of not only the Pac-12, but, possibly from the outside looking in, maybe busting into the top 4. So
And I knew that didn't sound right to correct myself very quickly. Yeah, DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson, but he's had a heck of a year to date.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. It's going to be a fun one to watch. What we got next, Bubba? K-State?
Hold on,
All right, we got Texas. Here we go. We got the Texas Longhorns, number 20 in the country at 5-2. At Oklahoma State, Jay, a 5-1 team. Longhorns by 6.5, Jay. Another tough one.
Yeah, on this one, I'm going to go with Oklahoma State to cover. I just, being on the road, I don't know if I can pick Texas to win by a touchdown.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel like the Big 12 is such a hard conference to pick. These teams score a ton of points, Jay. There's very little defense most games. You look at Oklahoma State. I mean, they're scoring, I think they're averaging like 43 points a game. Each and every week, they're scoring high 40s. They do give up a lot of points, too. So I think this is going to be a really, really high-scoring game. Here's I have the numbers in front of me now, Jay. But offensively, points scored, Oklahoma State is number 4 in the country at 45 points per game. So they can score points on anybody. But Texas will score on them. So at the end of the day, I say Oklahoma State, because they're at home. I think they're going to cover this. I think they'll win it outright too. I think they're just going to be able to score too many points for Texas to hang on. And I like Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy to get it done at home. So with that said, Bubba, here we go. We got number 17, Kansas State at 5-1, heading to number 8, TCU at 6-0. Horned Frogs are a 4-point favorite. Jay had to cut out here for a second, I think. Bubba, what are your thoughts on this one?
Sorry, bear with me a moment. Takes me a moment when I was backstage where I couldn't chime in. But yeah, taking a look at this one, I really think give me TCU. Last week I went with Oklahoma State to get it done in Fort Worth against TCU, and it looked pretty good for quite a while. And they had at least 2 or 3 score lead, but then TCU came roaring back in the fourth quarter. And K-State's having a heck of a year, obviously, and that one loss, a note for Pirate fans, that obviously came against Tulane. When they went to Manhattan and won. So that victory for Willie Fritz and company is looking better all the time. And, Tulane, we shall see. And it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility for Tulane to make it to New Year's Six Bowl. But as far as this one's concerned, I would go with TCU, I believe, to cover that 4.
Yeah.
What I really like about TCU is Max Duggan, the quarterback. He's and I apologize for talking over you there, Matt. I'm having some technical difficulties where I am watching Riley's football practice, but Max Duggan, the quarterback for TCU, is having a heck of a year, and I just think that the Horned Frogs are going to have a bit too much offense for the Wildcats.
Yeah, I agree. And you make some great points, Bubba. It does make me, when I look at Kansas State's record, it does make me think of Tulane first, handing them their only loss. And, I think, not to get off track here, but I think Tulane, right now, when you look at the American, I think they're right there with Cincinnati. I think, right now, at least right now, UCF is right there as well. Any one of those three teams, I think, are very dangerous, as we stand right now. But very impressive win by Tulane. And, Bubba, looking at this game, the over under is 56 and a half. And that really surprised me because TCU scores in the 40s each and every week, it seems like. I mean, they score a ton of points. And Kansas State can score too. Now, what I think is interesting here is that Kansas State is coming off of a bye week. So they had a chance to kind of get fresh right at the midseason point, which is really good timing for them. And 2 weeks to prepare for TCU, who's had a very difficult schedule in recent weeks, playing Oklahoma State, Kansas, Oklahoma. So I think you're going to get a really, excuse me, I think you're going to get a really fresh Kansas State team. And for the first time all year, I'm going against the Horned Frogs. I think Kansas State will cover in this game. I'm not sure if they'll win, but I think they'll cover in a very high-scoring game. So another one down. What else do we got, Bubba? So we're looking here.
I believe that's all five. You and Jay had picked that the Ole Miss LSU game when I'd stepped away, and so that's another interesting one. We're seeing that a lot this year. There's so much parity. You see number 7 Ole Miss 7-0, and they were kind of pushed to the brink a bit there by Auburn. I mean, Ole Miss really won a shootout in that one in Oxford last weekend, but there they are at number 7, 7-0, and going to Baton Rouge, and then they're a slight. It's basically a pick 'em, but LSU is a 1.5 point favorite in that one.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a tough game to pick. How about LSU, Bubba? I mean, they're a team that, like I said earlier, you just don't know what you're going to get week in and week out right now. But they are at home, so I think it's going to be another great game in the SEC. So those are really the big games of the week. And now, Bubba, I want to just take a few minutes and turn our attention towards East Carolina and UCF. It looks like the line, it opened at 3, I believe. It's now about 4.5 as of about a few hours ago. What are your thoughts on this game, Bubba, as UCF comes into Greenville here?
Sorry, I was double checking that line, and yes, it has risen to UCF -5, and that's closer to where I thought it would be. Honestly, it surprised me a little, even with the game being in Greenville when it opened. UCF -3, I thought it would be closer to a touchdown. Just like if it was in Orlando, you always hear the home team gets 2 or 3 points. I would have thought the Knights would have been about a 9 or 10 point favorite if we were playing down at the bounce house. But I think as you look at this team, obviously the Pirates beat a solid Memphis team. But when you look at UCF, they're just so explosive offensively. John Rice Plumlee coming over from Ole Miss, the dual sport athlete and dual threat. He has really thrown the football well, and especially in these last couple games, they've put up a combined 109 points against SMU and Temple the last 2 times out. So they're seemingly really starting to click on all cylinders, and it's a game. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry. This is what happens when you're unexpectedly doing a show while eating. But
something went down the wrong pipe.
But no, when you take a look at this game, I think the Pirates are going to have to play much more sharp in certain aspects than they have. Like, you're not going to be able to dig yourself. I'd be surprised if we, fall behind 3 scores against UCF if we're able to rally and pick up the win. I just think that we're going to have to be more sound in multiple areas in order for us to be able to win what would undoubtedly be the biggest win of the Mike Houston era. And what I started to say a moment ago when I could not speak is that I think if you look at this UCF team, that that their defense may not be as good as NC State, at least from just a raw talent standpoint. But I think when you take into consideration their offense and just their all around, I think they're probably just as good, if not better, than NC State. And I think this would be a heck of a win. I know this will be a heck of a win on Saturday night if the Pirates are able to take care of business.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're right there in terms of, talent with a team like NC State. But I think they're more explosive, like their big play potential. It just seems like every week they're finding ways to run off these huge plays on people. And so just an incredibly difficult matchup for the Pirates at home. Now, I'm going to say something here that might surprise you a little bit, Bob, but I think defensively for ECU, I think we match up better with UCF than we do Memphis. And the reason why I say that is because right now, if you look at our team, the strength of this team is really stopping the run. We're very strong in the front 8. Right now, where we're struggling the most defensively is on the back end. And we're giving up a lot of yards in the passing game. And Memphis is a team that really spreads you out and gives you a lot of different looks, from an offensive standpoint. They really do a nice job. I'll tell you, I was very impressed with some of the things Memphis did last week to get the tight end involved on some delayed drag routes. Really put a lot of stress on your secondary. So they gave us a lot of problems. And, I think even though UCF has incredible playmakers, I think we match up a little better schematically with them than we did Memphis. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can see where you're going there, and we'll definitely be talking much more in depth about UCF here in just a couple hours. 8:30 tonight, we have the Pirate preview here on Tuesday night. As always, we will be joined by Trace Trilco from the Sons of UCF podcast and get his thought on this explosive Knights offense. And I talked about John Rice Plumlee, and he has some tremendous playmakers, guys that immediately come to mind, like O'Keefe and also Richardson. But there's certainly others as well, and we'll hear about those as well as the Knights' solid start, solid first half of the year, rather, on the defensive side of the ball. Johnny Gardner here on Facebook makes a good point, Matt, bringing up some of the variables.
What's up, Johnny?
You think maybe they come in a bit overconfident. First true road game, their only road game this year, was down at FAU. And obviously the temperatures, I don't know exactly what it's going to be. I'll look that up in a moment. But on Saturday night, the temperatures will definitely be colder than what they're currently used to.
Yeah, I mean, I think Johnny makes a good point. I mean, you never know what you're going to get. This is a huge road test for them coming into Greenfield. I think that's a good point too about the weather being a little colder. You have a team from Florida. So there's a lot to like, I think, about East Carolina being at home here. Certainly I think Gus Malzahn is the type of coach where he'll have them ready to go, but I think he's going to get our best punch. And, I think, I got to say, just looking again at last week, you look at Holton Ahlers' numbers, 26 for 34, 304, 1 touchdown. And the big one was no interceptions. I thought he did a nice job of kind of letting the game come to him and not forcing anything. I think he's going to have to do the same thing this week. He's going to have to be really smart. Turnovers against an offense like this can be a killer. So I think that's something to look for. Can Holton Ahlers stay hot? Can he stay efficient and not make that, that crucial turnover in the wrong spot?
Great points there. The Pirates in this game will, this goes for, most games, especially the ones against quality competition like a Tulane or a UCF. But, when you you have those turnovers, just like we saw with Memphis. I mean, Memphis, excellent team, and you saw the night that Seth Hennigan had, 27 out of 37 or something like that for 407. But he made those two crucial mistakes, the pick six, and then also the pick by Malik Fleming that gave the Pirates a short field and quick score right before half. And those were crucial in allowing East Carolina to make the comeback against Memphis.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think, you look at Keaton Mitchell, Bubba, that's, I believe, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm about 99% confident that he's never had 29 carries in a game or anywhere close to that since he's been at East Carolina. You look at him last week, he was outstanding, outstanding. 29 carries for 149 yards. He averaged 5.1 with 3 touchdowns. But that doesn't even really tell the story to me. When you look at those numbers, okay, it looks like a really good game. Maybe you're not blown away by it. But if you watch that game, he was unbelievable. He really showed toughness in between the tackles. I thought he ran hard in the red zone inside the 5-yard line. And then how about the ability, Bubba, you look at the 2-point conversion, the ability to make people miss in the open field. I mean, he carried this team in some ways on Saturday night.
Yeah, looking over the numbers, obviously his carries had been down the 3 previous games. Obviously, he did not play against South Florida and then against Navy. He played a half, and then he was still coming off that injury down at Tulane, where I think he had 8 to 10 carries. But yeah, that 29 is far and away his season high, and I think you're probably right as far as a potential career high. And those first 3 games of the season, the most carries he had was 18, and I believe that was in the Old Dominion game where he ran it 18 times for 160 yards.
Yeah, so I mean that's a heavy workload. You throw in the fact that he also had 4 receptions for 28 yards. You get it. I mean, you get what Mike Houston was trying to do, right? And Donnie Kirkpatrick. They're basically saying, "Hey, we're in a game right now. We're missing Rajay, our number 2 back. We're in a game right now that we have to win. Absolutely have to win it." And he basically said, "Hey, we're going to put this thing on Keaton's shoulders, and we're going to give him touches." And is that a recipe moving forward that's great for Keaton and the team? Probably not. I think if he gets that many touches for several weeks in a row, he's probably going to get injured, break down. But that's certainly not a knock on Mike Houston. I mean, he knew what he had to do to get that win, and he rode Keaton Mitchell. So, you like to see maybe, hopefully this week, Marlon Gunn can get a little bit more involved at the very least, just to give Keaton a break, maybe keep his carries around 20 or so for the game.
Yeah, and going back and watching some of that game against Memphis, I mean, you referenced those big plays, because, and I say plays, not just runs, because in the third overtime, when the Pirates were in a desperate situation, he caught that ball out in the flat and made the guy miss. And it was a guy, I mean, you could really, the Memphis guy, I mean, Memphis had exactly what they wanted, and Keaton Mitchell made a play, and then I guess prior to that, the run he had going to the boneyard. Remember where he ran to the right sideline and made, I think, 3 Memphis defenders miss. I mean, he showed his acceleration to get the corner, and then he cut back at least once, if not twice. And so, just heck of a night for Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't say enough. And like I said, I don't think the stats really tell the whole story. And when he first got here, I thought that the way I kind of saw this playing out for him was that Rajay would be the in between the tackles guy. Keaton, I thought I kind of saw him. We all knew about the great speed, but I saw him more of like a scat back. He was going to get a lot of receptions out of the backfield, work outside the tackles. But man, he has proven he's tough inside the tackles. He's durable. and he runs physically too for a smaller guy. So you got to be impressed there. And then what can you say, Bubba, about Isaiah Winstead? I mean, he just shows up every week, 9 receptions for 154 yards. I think to have a chance to beat UCF, you have to sort of combine all these things. Holt Naylor's playing great. Keaton and Isaiah Winstead's another guy. He's going to have a big day.
Yeah, third time this year that Zay Winstead eclipsed that 100-yard mark, and he's been exactly what the Pirates hoped he would be, and he has 52 receptions for 719 yards now through 7 ball games, and as many Pirate fans have probably seen on social media or on ECUPirates.com, Zay Winstead is on the Blitnikoff watch list for top receiver in the nation.
That's amazing. I mean, he's a guy that, he went into the transfer portal. He knew he had 1 year left, and he's got hopes of playing in the NFL. And, he certainly made the right decision coming here to East Carolina because he's been featured in the passing game every week. He's been very productive. He made some great plays. So he was a hell of a pickup by Mike Houston and the staff in the offseason. But so with that said, Bubba, all right, so you're filling in for Sonnhalter here. Jay had a work issue come up, guys, so he had to bounce. But so you have to make a pick for Jay. So again, UCF, I'm putting you on the spot. UCF, a 4.5-point favorite in Greenville. How's this going to play out?
I think always, anytime I hate to go against the Pirates, and I'm not a betting man anyway, and I would never actually bet against the Pirates. But if I'm having to make a pick in this game, I think I would take UCF to cover that 5 points. I don't think it will be. I think it'll be a competitive game, and it would not surprise me at all if the Pirates come out victorious. But just based on what I've seen of these two teams to date, and in the way UCF is really seeming to put things together offensively, especially in the passing game, and we know how we've struggled to defend the pass. So I think in order for the Pirates to win this game, multiple things are obviously going to have to happen. But you referenced the turnovers earlier. I just think in order for us to win this game, that we're going to have to win the turnover battle by probably at least a couple, if not 3. And then when we had those extra opportunities, we have to really capitalize in the red zone, and we can't have some of the miscues we've had, up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, especially within the kicking game, right? And, I have to say I liked Conrad coming in last week. I thought he did a nice job for us. I thought his kicks, he looked confident. I thought he had good power. Even if you look at his extra points, I thought he had some good power behind those kicks. And, Larson obviously continues to struggle as the holder. Had another miscue last week for a missed extra point. And those are killers. I mean, hey, we were able to win that game. But if you make that extra point, all right, now you don't have to go through all that mess at the end, 10 overtime. So that's an area I think we need to
at least
address.
Yeah, at least possibly. You never know how it's going to play out, but if nothing else, I mean, depending on how things would have gone after that, if it would have been a made extra point, you never know. Memphis may have to go for 2, and then maybe they tie it up, or or maybe it's a situation where you have a 2-point lead because that you never know how the game's going to play out after that. But yeah, I'm trying to recall exactly what, because I guess that made it 17-13, right? So yeah, I mean, who knows on the way, but you certainly would have loved for that possibility to be there to have that point that you missed because you didn't catch the snap.
Yeah, and it really puts the coaching staff in a tough situation because Now, every time you're around the 15, 10-yard line going in, it really affects how you're going to call the game. If you don't want to use your field goal kicker, now you have to call plays differently. So it's definitely an issue. Last week, we were able to get through it. Hopefully, it continues to get better. But I'll tell you, I was holding my breath every time we had to kick an extra point.
No doubt. And Craig Doucette chimes in from Virginia on Facebook saying, I think Dapper would have had just as good of an outing with the kicks made in that game. And he thinks Garcia should hold. You know, we had heard last week freshman wide receiver Brock Spalding that he would probably see action as a receiver. And we heard that he was at least one of the holders, if not number 2 on the depth chart at holding. So it will be interesting to see if Luke Larson is indeed the holder once again this week, or if it's Brock Spalding or someone else like Craig mentions.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's what is Mason Garcia? He's got what, Bubba, 3 games left potentially that he can play in without burning the red shirt.
Yeah, I was looking at that, or thinking about that situation, and yeah, Mason. The only game in which he played was, of course, Campbell, where he played, I guess, in the last 10 to 12 minutes, a large percentage of the fourth quarter at least. 5 out of 7, 39 yards for Mason Garcia in that game. So, yeah, he has those 3 games to play with out of the Pirates' remaining 5, or obviously, hopefully 6 with a bowl game. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Coach Houston and staff elect to use those 3, because I really think that, I mean, I understand, certain situations like why he hasn't gone in. For instance, I'm trying to remember if it was maybe a situation in the Tulane game, but it was a late half situation. It may have actually been against Memphis, but a situation where Mason Garcia, has a little bit stronger of an arm. You can throw it farther than Holton, but you're not going to use unless the game's on the line, and you know good and well that Garcia can get it there and Holton can't, and you're going with the Hail Mary, then sure you're going to burn that game for one play. But in that situation, it's probably the wise thing to do if you didn't have any other intentions to play Mason to hold off, so he retain that game, and would have the opportunity to play 3 games down the stretch without burning the red shirt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely an interesting situation. But to Craig's point, and I know exactly where Craig's going with it, and maybe Craig, what we'll see is in the last 3 games, Mason will step into that role. But it does put the staff in a predicament because they're trying to preserve that red shirt. But I think it's a really good point by Craig. And just to tee off on that really quick before we get out of here, it became really apparent last week that Holton that shoulder is becoming a major issue. And it seemed 5 or 6 occasions, Bubba, he got up after running and taking a hit, and that it looked like that shoulder was hanging on by a thread. So, Mason's going to need to be ready to go because, I mean, you certainly hope Holton can find a way to gut it out. I mean, he's a gutsy kid. He's playing hurt. You got to give him credit. The kid's playing hurt, and you can see it. But from Mason Garcia's perspective, if Holton goes down, that red shirt that thing's going to get burned quick, and he needs to be ready to go because that I could see a situation where Holton needs to come out.
Yeah, as far as Holton's concerned, you think right there, maybe it was our first touchdown there late in the second quarter, but we're going toward the Murphy Center end zone, and you probably recall this, Matt, seeing it on the video board, and that was the grimace on Holton's face, when he jumped up, and you could tell that shoulder was really bothering him. And I believe I heard someone say that he got one of his teammates on the sideline even before he got to a trainer to pop the shoulder back in. But you could tell he was in pain, and hats off to him. This is his swan song, and he's doing everything he can to not have to leave the ball game and just put his best foot forward for this football team and program. And nothing but a tip of the hat and so much respect for Holton Ahlers. And that's why I think, in addition to just having played the position and knowing, how you're going to get too much credit and too much blame, when there have been those decisions where Holton wishes he could have him back, and no reason to rehash some of those. But I know, like just for instance, like where he threw across his body against against Memphis the other night, and that was one that we really held our breath on, and we fortunately saw the ball fall incomplete. But by and large, you look at the decisions and the plays that Holton's made, coming down to what his fourth or fifth read on that throw to Keaton Mitchell in the third overtime, and then the throw that he made to C.J. Johnson down in the boneyard in the fourth overtime on that back shoulder throw. He had to put it right on the money as C.J. was getting interfered with and still made the catch. And then the play that Holton made, Coach Houston referenced this today in his weekly press conference, or maybe it was Monday night on his coaching show, just saying that the play where Holton kept it on the read option down at the Murphy Center that was something that was set up because of Holton's film study and his experience, just recognizing what Memphis was doing defensively and knowing that that end was going to crash, and he could have obviously walked into the end zone.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think the one play you cited, Bubba, where he kind of threw across his body there, I really think that was a result of him. I think if he was healthy, he would have run on that play and tried to plow his way into the end zone. I think that's a result, and that's where it's kind of hurting him a little bit. You hate it for him. We got away with one there, but I think if he was healthy, I'd love to see him run more, but that's not the case. But Craig Doucette says, but what a baller, diving for the end zone, knowing, yeah, exactly, Craig, exactly. I mean, you got to give him credit, and say whatever you want about Holton Ahlers, but the kid shows up, the kid plays his ass off every week. He works hard, and you got to respect somebody that plays injured. So,
and as frustrating as some of those.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bubba.
Oh, no problem. Sorry, I didn't mean to have some lag there, but just a little bit more about Holton. As frustrating as some of those a handful of decisions have been, you look at his numbers and just the way he's improved. I mean, he's completing right at 70% of his passes. Right now, he's 68.5% as far as his completion percentage. He's thrown for a little over 2,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. So, some people say this and that, and I understand their frustration there in the heat of the moment. But on the whole, Holton Ahlers has had a heck of a career and a heck of a season, and hopefully he'll continue to be able to stay in the game and overcome that shoulder injury.
Yeah, he's somebody that needs the bye week in the worst way, and I think that'll really serve him well when we get to that point. But the bye week comes at a tough time this year for East Carolina. I mean, it just doesn't come at the halfway point where you need it sometimes. Get this team healthy, but it is what it is. I mean, you just have to kind of fight through it, and that's where that depth comes into play. But all right, Bubba, we've gone long here on this, but the final point I wanted to make, or at least ask you, the crowd against Memphis was a little sparse, I thought, but the people who were there, I thought made it very loud at the end of the game. Really hoping for a better turnout this week against UCF. How many people you think will have, actual butts in the seats, this Saturday night?
As far as what I think we will have, I would say it will be, I think it will be probably right around 40 or just shy of 40. In my opinion, just being realistic, just I think we should have, as big of a crowd as we've had this year outside of the NC State game. I think we should have more like 44, 45,000. Because you think about it, UCF's 5-1. This is the last time they're going to be coming to Greenville for who knows when, and that's not talking anybody up. And then to give credit where credit's due, they've been an excellent football program, with the exception of a season or two over the last decade to 15 years, with what George O'Leary accomplished there, with obviously Scott Frost, Josh Heupel. And so this is undoubtedly, if the Pirates take care of business on Saturday night, going to be the biggest win in the Mike Houston era. And, it's not even close, in my opinion. You do have that SMU win, but with what this win would mean, getting to 5-3, 3-2 in the American, and, setting up so much momentum going to Provo the following week, I really think, and know Pirate Nation needs to get out to Dowdy Ficklin on Saturday and be that 12th man and create a atmosphere that will help push this team over the top and get the biggest win that this program's had since at least about 2014.
Yeah, it was great points, and I'm hoping we have, at minimum 40. I really am. I hope we can get over that 40 mark and like you said, really cause some disruption for the offense for UCF. But hey, with that said, Bubba, we've gone pretty long here, buddy. Jay had he had some work related things pop up. Thanks for hopping on in a pinch. We're going to be together again later for the Pirate preview. Bubba, anything you want to mention in terms of programming here?
Yeah, just, if you're watching us live now on YouTube and Facebook, join us at 8:30 tonight for the Pirate preview, as I mentioned earlier, be joined by Trace Chilco of the Sons of UCF podcast, and we'll get an in-depth look at Gus Malzahn's ball club on the 5-1 UCF Knights. They're tied for 28th in the AP poll this week. So, just tune into that. And then last night, Jeff Connors had another excellent show. Go to our YouTube channel and check that, as well as all of our other programming out. Tomorrow night we'll be on the air at 7:00 with Pirate Breakdown with Sutton Young, as he'll catch up with the East Carolina student. A little bit different show tomorrow night, but it should be good with Sutton. And then on Thursday night we'll have the Inside Slant. On Friday we'll have a Pirate's Life for me. And then obviously Sunday we'll take a look back at UCF with the Pirate football playback presented by L&K Custom Homes.
Yeah, absolutely. And appreciate you mentioning that, Bubba. And just to plug Coach Jeff Connors' show here, former coach of mine, one of my favorite coaches, and he's getting some great guests, some really interesting guests. So if people haven't had a chance to tune into that yet, I recommend it, because he has some pretty awesome guests, some in-depth interviews there. So I definitely recommend that. So with that said, buddy, hey, let's go ahead and get out of here. We'll wrap this one up.
You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates. Listen to the show pretty much everywhere podcasts are found. Be sure to follow us on social media at The Sports OBJ on Twitter and TikTok, at The Sports Objective on Instagram. Like and follow our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate you listening to the show. And go Pirates!